wanted freedom. Adjust the frames. Got keys to kingdom. Unlocking chains. Sober the podcast. Open up your brains. Sober the podcast. Let's get it, man. Yeah.
Welcome back to another episode of Sober the Podcast with your host, Bradley Saxon. And we've got an exciting show for you today, but we are adding a new tradition at the beginning of this show. And this tradition, what are we going to call it, see?
We'll call it three-pointer.
Three-pointer?
You put him on the spot.
Three-pointer.
I mean, he's
like
pretty
it.
good coming off the hip. I
Three-pointer.
actually usually think that's lame, but that's pretty good.
That's it.
Three-pointer.
Three-pointer.
So here's how it works. So at the beginning, and y'all are the first.
Sweet.
Inaugural.
Inaugural.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. That's
Good thing we're not competitive.
bro.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? This is the four most competitive people I've ever met in my life.
On one couch.
Like if we get out of here today without a bloody nose, we'll be doing something.
Yeah.
So we're gonna ask guests, and y'all be in the first from here, 3 questions concerning some type of random history in sports.
Okay.
And they get an opportunity to answer the questions, and however many they get right, 1, 2, or 3.
Yep.
At the end, the viewers can't see it right now, but they will. They'll get a chance from the couch to shoot a 3-pointer.
Jumpers.
And so,
Or sitters.
Sitters.
It'll be a
That's what I was
sitter.
going to say. Sitters.
so here's the deal. We got to make sure we clarify this. At the end, you can only win 1 prize.
Yep.
Because, there'll be that cat be like, I made 3. Let me get that hoodie,
Yeah.
The
let me get that shirt,
joggers.
the
Let me get a
joggers,
hat.
and the
Yeah.
shoes.
Yeah, they will.
Y'all got shoes?
Kukas.
It's got to be the shoes.
You ain't never had them kukas with the strap? No,
No.
we ain't got the shoes.
No.
But
Not yet.
if they make it, they get to win.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to ask the first question, and then you can ask the next one.
Okay, cool. Go.
So here's the first question. Who won the 1995 World Series?
Yankees.
Okay, Mike, you get a chance.
I'm going to go with the Braves.
Hey! The Braves.
Dang,
it
that's
is.
a Morgan Wallen song.
Yeah.
It is.
was.
98.
Wait, no,
That was
98.
98.
Braves.
98. But
I'm losing on every
the
front.
Yankees did win in 2000.
I just knew the Yankees won
like,
a lot.
They actually won, I think, 97, 98. No. Was that right? They won many. But anyway, good job, Mike.
Yeah.
Second question.
I'm not going to be good at this.
Who won the 1996 NBA Finals?
That's got to be. I'm wearing the pools right now.
Hey! 2 out of 2. All right, see, this might stump them.
I think that's the last time I watched the NBA.
96.
MJ.
Well, it's kind of hard
Probably.
not to watch MJ.
That's what I'm saying. When MJ played. Anyway, go ahead, CJ.
The GOAT, by the way.
Thank
All
you.
right, so,
One of the goats.
So third and final.
The GOAT.
GOAT. Okay, third and final question. Who has the most Olympic gold medals?
I know this one. I can't think of his name. He's a swimmer.
Yep. What's
Michael Phelps.
Hey!
Thank you. That was a team effort.
So,
That was
guys,
team effort.
3 3-pointers at the end of the
Yep.
show for a chance to win some merchandise.
Yep.
Again, we haven't introduced you, but thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us. Meredith
Yeah,
Knox,
man. Thanks
Michael
for having
Knox. And one of the ways when it comes to sharing our story, we just sort of generalize it or frame it like this. Let's talk about what it was like, which would be a story of growing up and prior to Jesus type deal. And then that turning point for both of you, which is different. Because here's a question most people have. How do 2 people, brother, sister, grow up in the same house and end up at 2 different places?
Yeah.
Because here's the truth. You both come from a great home. I've met your parents, wonderful people. But it's crazy how a lot of parents take the burden of children's choices. But at the end of the day, and I'm not saying there's not homes where parents don't influence behavior.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is at the end of the day, the responsibility falls on the person for the choices they made that plays the path that they took,
That's
right?
Yep.
And so I told Michael yesterday, I said, man, you 2 end up at the same place, but you take, one takes a boat, one takes a well.
That's
you know
right.
what I'm saying?
That's right.
And so I think there's many people under the sound of our voices that really need some hope in what it was like, what happened, and now what it's like now that Jesus has got in our boat, both of your boats, and it's just a wonderful thing to see redemption. So, that's the objective today. So we could just flow with that, and just imagine this: like we're just wanting to have a conversation as if the listener is just chilling right here with us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Cool.
Sounds
Cool.
good.
Who was the star?
You're the older brother, so you have to go first. Older
Well, I
brothers
mean,
lead the way.
let's just talk about, Mike, how it was growing up in your home with your sister. I mean, I know you're the
What was
you're
it
the
like?
middle.
Yeah, what was it like,
I'm in the
Mike?
middle,
Yo,
yeah.
and tell the truth now, Mike. Don't be lying.
No, I mean it was really good. I mean, I think we were really close. We have an older brother there's quite a bit of an age gap between him and Meredith. So me and Meredith probably spent the most time together. A lot of our childhood was sports, being really heavily involved with sports. So I can always remember Meredith being there for all of my games and kind of watching me play. And I don't know, we just had a really good childhood. Like you said, great parents, a great family. Grew up in church, and it starts, I guess, with our grandparents or kind of mentors in the family, and so it was just it was a really good time, and I don't know, it was just.
When was, I guess, I don't know if I've even asked you this before. When was, like, do you think we, like Bradley's talking about, like, diverged? Like, when do you think, I don't think we've talked about this.
That's such a good question.
Oh,
Sorry.
that you, because Brad is our older brother. He's
Yep.
9 years older than me, and you're 6
Yeah.
years older than me. So I don't think I know when you started drinking, or was that, I don't think we lived together when that started.
Yeah, we lived together for sure. I mean,
Let's go. I love this, bro. Let's
I
go.
knew that was coming. Yeah.
I mean, for me, it started with pot and marijuana. I mean, when I was like 15 years old.
That's when Mom thought she was smelling skunks.
Yeah.
Bro,
A
that's
bunch
so
of skunks.
good.
Which I don't
Yeah.
know if it smelled like skunk back then. That was that little dirty weed, But,
You hit the bricks and all the
Yeah,
seeds
yeah.
fall over.
Yeah, that's
That's
right.
definitely not skunk weed.
I
Anyway,
mean, for me, it was 15. I started smoking weed, and it was really just a lot of weed until I turned 18.
and you didn't know that, Meredith.
No, I didn't know.
You didn't have a clue.
I lived a very sheltered, I went to public school, but one thing I've told Michael this before, I've always loved the rules and wanted to follow them. And I joke that I met Jesus and he made me a rule breaker because I was such a these
By
are the
the
rules
book, yeah.
I will follow. And so I actually always really respected that Michael wasn't just didn't just take things because somebody told him that's how it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I always kind of wished I could be more like that. So yeah.
Which I think now that Michael's well, that becomes a trait of his personality that
Right.
makes him very unique.
Yeah.
I always told people if and when God gets a hold of Michael, y'all just better watch out because he ain't gonna just, if you're don't go tell them about Jesus, he'll be like, all right, bet.
I did kind of want to going back to that kind of a funny story. I remember, I don't know, I might have been 11 or 12 years old, and Meredith was around 6, and I used to have a thing with fire. I just used to start fires in the backyard. And I can remember we were out. I decided to put some gasoline in a little spray bottle.
I remember this.
And we were in the backyard, and she's following me around, and I'm just, in the ditch in the back, just starting fires and spraying it with gasoline.
And she's just following you
And
around.
she's following me around.
She's your
I thought he was
shadow.
cool.
So I couldn't get the fire big enough, so I take the cap off the the spray bottle and just chunking gas out of the thing. Well, of course, the fire follows the gas up into the bottle and explodes in my hand. The whole ditch catches on fire. Of course, she ratted me out for that.
Literally, this was probably the next night. I was in my bed weeping, crying. And Mom's like, what is it? What is it? And I was like, I can't tell you. He's going to kill me. He's going to kill me. She's like, what was it? And I was like, we caught the backyard on fire.
That's great.
Because what we had told them was our neighbor was always burning leaves. So we're like, oh, it came over. The wind caught it and caught the ditch on fire. And I just couldn't hold it. So I told Mom, and his bedroom was literally across the hall from mine. She closes my door. I hear her walk over, and he's like, "No, and I was like, I knew it. I'm gonna die."
You get a spanking?
that was actually a different time with the neighbor. I caught another area of the backyard on fire, but I mean, I think that just shows the difference because I never would have told the truth. I would have took that to my grave.
Yeah.
And she was just honest about it, and
I couldn't.
I mean, I would lie about anything, you know, from a very young age. If it got me out of trouble or whatever, I'd lie about it. So I mean, it started, you know, with a very young age with just telling lies and seeing how easy it was to get out of things by not being honest and truthful. And I mean, I think that's a big piece of my life where it started was just, you know, not being honest and lying and seeing where that would get me. And I was just probably the most honest person for the majority of my life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that a lot of times we realize that it ain't the mistakes really that hurt us. It's lying about them.
Yeah.
And so over years of lying, it just plugs your soul and it's like no ventilation. And so when that pain becomes paramount, man, oftentimes people look to something outside of them to get some relief.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of where addiction starts for most people is because of these character defects that are impugned to us by our sin because we're born a sinner, right? This is impugned, and you don't have to teach a child how to lie. Like they already are bent towards that, right? But some people, man, just make different choices. It's hard to really even know, you know, but some people like Meredith, like, I can't go to bed without telling the truth, you know? But I do think I remember as a kid being like that a little bit too, though, you know? But somewhere along the lines when you start wanting to do things that your parents won't let you do, you start learning ways to get into environments that allow you, even if it's manipulation and lying.
Well, I think you, the younger you, because I was 6 at that point. I'm sure I wasn't as much like that at 11 and 13, you know. But I think the younger you are, the less time you've had to learn shame.
Yeah.
And the older you get, the more shame will tell you to keep a secret.
Yeah.
That's
Because
good,
what will they think? Or it's more than getting in trouble. Excuse me. It's less about getting in trouble and more about like perception and will I be loved and will people still see me the same way? Because I've had a friend, I think one night on the phone we talked about this, but who would say your secrets won't kill you, but your sins might?
Yeah.
Excuse me, your sins won't kill you, but your secrets might.
Yes.
And that has been like, because I think it could be easy to look at someone with an addiction, and God convicted me multiple times of like, addiction is not any greater sin than any sin I want to keep a secret about.
Sure.
You know, it may have different ramifications. It may affect families differently, but sin it is a poison. It is a sickness. And if I keep my own secrets, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So that's just always been, who knows who said it. It's all God's anyway.
Yeah,
but
it is.
your sins won't kill you, but your secrets might.
Yeah.
And, you know,
No, you're good. I was just going to say something that we always make a statement of is we're only as sick as our secrets.
yeah.
We're as sick as our secrets. And I remember growing up to kind of, you know, go off what you guys are saying is that for some, I think it is shame. But for me, it was fear. Like I had the discipline in my household by my dad, mom. And so what kind of kept me in between, this is what I say, in between the mustard and the mayonnaise, between the white and yellow line in my life was fear. Fear of what was going to happen if I didn't tell the truth, or fear of what was going to happen if I did get caught. And then I started to learn how to manipulate situations to make myself look like I was in a better light, or that it wasn't as bad as it was. And I just know, like, at a young age, it started to, what lying did for me was it started to erode my character and integrity.
Yeah.
It started to really eat away at who I thought I could be as a kid. It started to eat away the dreamer. It started to eat away the possibilities of life, you know? So for me, it was, a lot of that was fear in the beginning, fear of discipline. Yeah. You know?
So, Mike, how did you?
Yeah. Yeah, fear that.
Well, I mean, dude, there's a lot of things I didn't do because I knew Mama was at home.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
She said you never got it.
I never
You
got it.
never got a belt.
I
Mike,
got,
did you?
I got enough for all of them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Me
you-
too.
I
G.
remember one time Michael was getting whipped, and he was going, "That doesn't hurt," and I was in the hallway crying, going, "Stop, stop," because I was like, "Yes, it does. There's no way that doesn't hurt."
Mm-hmm.
Mom sent me in one time to get a whipping from Dad, and Dad said, "If you won't, promise not to do it again.
Bro, that's what my dad used to do.
I won't whip you." And I said, "I promise."
That's dude. My dad whipped the bed and told me to act like I'm crying.
Hey, you know what?
But my mom held no bar. Like my mom would come in with a belt, a spoon. It didn't matter, bro.
I used
So-
to like it when my mom would whip me because it wouldn't hurt.
So how at 15, bro? Like
I
how
love you,
how'd you get around marijuana? Like, are you going to public school at this point?
No, I was going to private
Yeah.
school, but I mean,
The
I
private
always-
schools are where it's at.
Oh,
I'm not
I
trying to
mean,
scare
it
any
really, I
parents.
was all still hanging out with
That's
my
where it
friends
is.
from public school. I was still playing sports at this time, so I mean, I was still had friends that went to public school, and I mean, a lot of it was just wanting to be like other kids too. I mean, but I can remember, the first time smoking weed, and
was you scared? Like, was you like, man, I don't want to do this, but
nah, I mean, I wanted to smoke.
oh
I
yeah,
mean,
because some people you hear like they do it because of fear of not being involved with the
Yeah.
with the
and maybe,
gang
yeah,
or whatever.
I mean, maybe there was some of that, but I mean, it was just. I think it was, it was the times too. I mean, you guys remember, the rap and.
What was you
know,
listening to?
I mean,
Ice
back
Cube or
then,
something?
I mean, it's still like back then.
Snoop
Probably
Dogg?
Ice. I mean, Snoop, Biggie.
Now I know Mob
mean,
Dukes didn't put
Tupac.
that in your
Biggie.
stocking.
Can't
nah,
no.
No. So
I'm
where
gonna tell you that wasn't in the stock.
No.
Michael's the one who bought me a Britney Spears CD.
Oh,
I was like,
Ooh,
yes.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. So, how long did you just recreationally use drugs or drink when you could? Like, when did it turn into a problem? Like, in the beginning we do it for fun.
Yeah.
We don't really think about it for a couple weeks, couple months because we're living
I
under
mean,
parental.
I was smoking weed whenever I could, got the chance. So, I mean, it was an everyday thing if I could. I mean, and
Out the house.
yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I was smoking weed all
I just
the
didn't know.
time.
I was across the hall. I didn't know what it
See,
smelled
you
like.
ain't smoking it inside.
No,
Oh,
Ain't
okay,
no
okay.
way.
I mean, I was 16. I got my license.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
riding around in the Civic.
Civic.
Smoking
The
blunts.
red Civic.
The red Civic. Yeah.
All I remember him smoking was Black and Milds. That's all I remember.
Yeah, that was to cover up the.
Didn't I?
Yeah.
You know that time the backyard caught on fire?
That was, I was trying to put this black and mild out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, from 15 on to until 18. I think it was 18. I might have tried alcohol, but before the age of 18. But I just kind of remember around the age of 18, and I can remember the first time I got drunk. Alcohol, and that was it. I mean, that really
You felt like man, I found it.
we talk about that
Yeah.
feeling, and I mean that was when I fell in love with alcohol. And of course, it just wasn't marijuana during that time either. I think before 18, I tried cocaine, then ecstasy. I would have tried anything really. I mean, if it would have been put in front of me, I would have done it. So
You were never like, what is that? It's just
Yeah.
like, do you got enough
yeah,
for us to get through
no
this?
doubt.
Yeah. So I know your parents were in the ministry. Were they leaders in the church at this time?
Not at this time. My mom, let's see, you're 18. Were we at a Second Baptist at that point?
No, I think we were going to a church, Faith and Victory. I mean,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
kind of a whole nother thing too. I mean, there was a lot of things that had happened at a previous church.
Yeah.
My parents were leaders, and a lot of it stemmed from we left the church because they were told they didn't know how to control me.
Yeah.
I won't get.
So that
yeah.
kind of added on to a lot of things, me not feeling like I was, like I was no good, I guess. And
But
that
there's
maybe I
stories
had
you
caused
and I
that.
have exchanged in this context. And even in your drinking and using, like, didn't you always sense deep down in you, like, that God had a calling for you?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I mean,
you
I
always wanted to do right.
I mean, there was stints during that time, 15 on that, I would, try to, rededicate myself to Christ. And, it just never took hold. But, I mean, even until, a year and a half ago almost now, I mean, during that entire time span, it's been, just a struggle to try to have a relationship with Jesus. And I just kept doing for me at the time, the easier thing was, drugs and alcohol.
Yeah. So, Mayor, tell us about this time, like when he's 15, 16, 17, doing these things. what does your life look like in these? Well, as he gets into his 20s and you get into your teenage years, what is your life starting to evolve into? Is it church?
Oh yeah, man.
Sports?
Yep.
So when did you get saved? So like when did you meet Jesus and you knew like I'm going in this different direction?
So this is actually tied. This is where our stories are intricately tied again because, when he was 15, 16, I was 9. I didn't know. I'm like, let's go play soccer.
Yes,
like I don't know what's going on. I'm like, weed in the yard?
Yes.
Like, let's go pull them. I didn't know what that was. So, and then I started in public school in the 7th grade. So we went to a really tiny Christian school. I didn't know nothing about nothing, which praise God.
Yeah,
honestly.
no doubt.
For sure.
But I grew up, like I said, loved the rules. That was great. And then when I came to AU to play softball, my sophomore year, I was 19.
Yes.
Is when Michael and Elizabeth were getting married, and we found out about Lily. And Lily's was their first daughter. And I mean, I was in theology classes at AU, and I remember getting the call. I go home. I remember sitting with Michael in the front yard of the house after we found out Lily had trisomy 18, a chromosome disorder. And Michael's just like, what are we going to do? I'm like, oh. And I come back to school and I'm just spiraling. Like, not outwardly, because that's not what good Christians do.
Right.
Inwardly, I'm like, is there even a God? If there is this the kind of God I want to believe in, who would let a baby die? Like, I'm sitting in classes where they're debating, do babies go to heaven? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I hate everything. Like,
absolutely.
Well, but because what happened, this like love of rules, this growing up in church, this quote unquote faith had never met anything.
Yeah.
And then it met this like thing I couldn't reconcile, and I didn't know what to do with it. And so, week after week at church, even I felt like the Holy Spirit was like, "This is so hard for you because you don't know me. You don't know me." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Yes, I do.
I grew up in church.
Look at my perfect life. Mm-hmm. I was the nerd on our college softball team who would print out verses and hand them to the girls before the game. Like, just hey, if you're doing that, good for you. Because when I didn't do it, they asked for it. But it was actually a chapel service at AU that Clayton King was actually speaking at, who now I work with, which is wild.
Yeah, that's cool.
And he was like, don't let pride be the reason to keep you in your seat. If you need a relationship with Jesus, stand up. Mm-hmm. And I stood up. And I remember one of my best friends was sitting next to me, and she leans over and she goes, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm getting saved." And so I tell people all the time, like, I'm so thankful. Lily lived 9 months and 6 hours. And I'm so thankful for Lily's life because that's how you know God can use all lives. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't know if I've told you this. I had a dream a few months after she was born because I was still struggling. I'd gotten saved. And I had a dream that I was like walking to the gates of heaven, and I was like, I'm dead. Like, oh no.
Here I come.
Oh no. How did this happen? And it was like millions of people. I mean, just slam walking to the gates. And I see kind of like this little kid weaving through the crowd, and she kind of busts through, and she's probably like 4, and she grabs my hand. I cry almost every time I tell the story. She grabs my hand and she's like pulling me to the gate. And she goes, Aunt Mare, Jesus can't wait to see you. And I woke up crying, obviously. And Jesus was like, she's fine. And she's right. I can't wait to see you. And I'm telling you, like, I can't wait to hang out with her.
Yeah.
I can't wait to me, her, Michael, we're going to be up there partying.
I can't do this.
But I'm telling you, from
amazing.
From that moment on, it was no longer I'd been around Jesus a lot. A lot of my friends knew Jesus. It was like, no, now me and Jesus have this relationship. And I'm telling you, my prayer life for Michael changed after that. Because before it was just like, I want my brother to be free and happy. And I always saw, have you ever seen Hook?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Where he's like, Peter's old, and he's like pushing his face back, and he goes, "There you are, Peter." I was like, there's going to be a moment in Michael's life where I'm like, there you are, Michael, you know. But it changed my prayer life for him too. Of like, I knew, even when I was mad and doubted, that one day this wasn't going to last forever.
Yeah.
And now here we are.
Yeah.
Sitting on the couch talking about
So
being sober.
let's look at it this way. This would probably be pretty vulnerable. Like as Mary's life changes, she gets saved. NAU, not living in North Carolina. You are still living in North Carolina. Was there ever a time that like you looked and said, "Man, like God's doing some great things in her life. Why not me?"
Maybe. I mean, I can't really pinpoint.
Like, cause sometimes in stories, there's this, like, my sister's one that, like, believe it or not, man, like, when I started this facility a couple years before we even opened the doors, my sister was homeless on West Whitner Street. And, like, she's 19 months sober now, but she comes and tells me stories of how she would walk by this place in the morning, hadn't been asleep, and just absolutely angry at God for what he did for me and wouldn't do for her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't say that I was like that. I think I was just so selfish during that time period and wrapped up in myself and what I had going on. I mean, I was proud of Meredith for what she was doing, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, even though I was, you know, in addiction and alcoholism, I was still being successful. As far as, you know, financially, I mean, I was doing well. But so I never really looked at it that way. And it's kind of, you know, weird that, well, not weird, but just how different, I guess, because Meredith's following during this time, you know, when Lily, you know, passed away, Meredith's following Christ. I'm not following Christ at all. I'm drinking. You know, my wife is hoping one day I'll stop. And, you know, and during this time, like, I never blamed God at all for what happened with Lily, you know, because I knew, that there was a reason for everything. I think there was like one, you know, a small, like one day that I was drinking. I can remember drinking some type of whiskey and my dad was there. And I think that day I was kind of angry or upset with God. But, you know, I never did blame God for what happened. But I just think that's kind of different perspective. Mm-hmm. Meredith's following Christ and she's kind of, you know, struggling with this God thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm just, you know, I'm not
following Christ.
I'm not following Christ, but I also am not blaming him because I know that there's a reason for everything. But I'm also still at the same time drinking. You know?
The whiskey helped.
Yeah, the whiskey and all that. So I mean,
you know what I'm saying? Like that helps.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can remember the day Lily's funeral. You know, my wife is just completely broken, and you know, as soon as we get home from the funeral, I'm cracking open a Budweiser.
Yeah,
that's how I was dealing with it.
Yeah.
So
because that's the deal when people get sober. A lot of times you think when they get sober, like they're not drinking and using, like their life's about to get better. But really, when you take the drugs and alcohol away, their life gets worse emotionally because of everything that they
have
pressed down and didn't face through drinking, all floods back over time, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's what you were doing. You were coping with life with drug and alcohol and not really grieving through each process. And so...
Home Nickus.
Ain't no way. Bill Nickus.
Hey.
Bill, hey, Bill.
Yes,
hey, Bill.
Lord. Thank you for calling.
I don't know how to stop it.
I think
we can cut that out.
Well,
no
I just
problem.
think that you know, mine and Michael's story was very similar in the sense that we used worldly success to cover up our brokenness. You know, we were able to use that as a crutch, financial gain and mortgage and wife and kids and all these things look like they're in order, but internally I am absolutely miserable. And, you know, the path that God took me on is very similar to the path that God is currently taking Michael and his family on, which is this path of humility, you know, and, you know, beginning to show you that he does care and that he can take care of you and that you don't have to have all those things to be okay. He started to show me through you and through the process that if I sought his kingdom, all these other things that were always my God. Like I say it like this, I would come home and I would put my crown on my money, you know, because I thought I was the king. you know, and now he's the king and he wears the crown, and he's given me and provided for me and my family everything. And I know he's going to do the same for Michael and Elizabeth and their family too. So it's just really cool to see that, you know, God's still in the business of working these miracles out and restoring families, you know, in the process, and showing Mike and, you know, through this journey that he doesn't have to have all these things, that everything he's ever wanted or needed, truly, he's already got.
Yeah.
You know, so
how long is this stint of Meredith's getting saved, she's in college, you have Lily, and this happens? How much longer are you drinking and using from this point?
Well, that's let's see. I mean, she would have been 16.
Yeah.
Wow.
This past October.
Which is wild.
So, I mean, it just kept on until September 29th, 2022.
So you just going to work, making a living, but you drinking.
Yeah. I mean, I'm burning it all down to the ground and not even knowing it. You know, I mean, it's coming. I mean,
But do you think a man's mentality in that being successful and a good provider is just like, well, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Like, why are you worried about me drinking?
Yeah.
that is the mentality.
I mean, that's the mentality. I mean, I got a house. I got kids that go to private school. You know, my wife has gone through college and gotten a degree. By this, you know, we've bought 2 houses. So even though, like, during this whole time, I don't want to drink or I don't want to use, I feel, you know, like, I feel horrible inside, but I'm masking that, or I'm medicating myself with drugs and alcohol, hoping that one day I'm gonna grow out of this thing.
Like it's a season.
Like it's a season, and I'm gonna grow out of this thing, and you know, it just keeps on, and eventually you start thinking, you know, things like God's gonna do something bad's gonna happen, something really bad's gonna happen if I don't stop. But that just causes it to make it even worse, because then I'm like, something bad's going to happen, just more fear on top of fear. So, you know, it just keeps on, and the entire time, you know, eventually it's all going to come crumbling down. And, of course, and it did all come crumbling down several times.
Let's talk about this turning point of when your life began to go in a different direction.
So 2021, I believe, Elizabeth had come to me, and she needed a change, and wanted to go travel, and take advantage of some of this travel nurse opportunities that were out there. So I agreed to do it. And so I left my job, and we took the kids out of school and went to the mountains of North Carolina. And the kids would homeschool, and I would stay with them. So during that time, you know, I'm not working, you know, I'm just hanging out every day with the kids. I'm still drinking.
Miss Doubtfire.
Yeah.
You were cooking lobster.
You was Miss Doubtfire.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So during that time, I'm not working. She's the provider during this time. We go to the mountains for a little bit. We come back home. And she got a travel nurse job kind of close to home. So we came back home. Of course, the same routine. I'm drinking. And during this last 4 years, I had started using opiates. And that had gotten pretty bad. It started with, you know, pain prescription pills. There was a time where all these people were going to the pain clinics and getting tons of them, and they would give me a couple here and there, and I just fell in love with those. So I started doing that, and wasn't all the time. And then there came a time where I couldn't get those. So somebody was like, "Hey, you want to, you know, try some heroin?" So I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so." So I did that, and so the last 4 years, you know, there's opiates mixed in with alcohol, and you know, leading up to, you know, September 29th, and I actually hadn't been using any opiates. I guess I'd been using Kratom for about 8 months. You know, of course, I'm still drinking every day, but
say no to Kratom.
Do what?
Say no to
Yeah,
Kratom.
no doubt. Yeah,
That's awful.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, you don't need to.
Okay.
So just ended up one night, wasn't even out looking for anything, came across some opiates that night, ended up having fentanyl in it, and I overdosed driving down a 55-mile-an-hour road with my 3-year-old son in the back.
And that was your best friend, right? That got you that.
Yeah.
Your best friend.
Yeah.
It's amazing, man, how we become who we hang out with.
Yeah.
And was he not the? I'm not trying to talk about nobody, but I am really. These kind of people are the ones that lure us in and pass. You know, we make the decision, but that influence of I'm never crossing this line, bro. Like I'm gonna do a couple lure tabs.
Yeah.
Well, I ain't never gonna snort heroin,
Yeah.
right? But like when you get around people that doing things you're not doing, it's the same thing with faith and fear. Like that table will take you further than you ever wanted to go. Just like sitting at tables with people in the faith that are further than you can help you get there. So we'll live in that life of addiction, take you cross lines you said you would never cross.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about Michael in this situation is that there are people that go to the streets because they want fentanyl.
Yeah.
Like CJ spent $150,000 in a year because he wanted fentanyl, right? But you didn't know really what fentanyl was, or you didn't say, "Hey, dude, let me get some fentanyl."
Yeah. No, yeah.
They were cutting the drugs on the streets
Yeah.
with it because it's so cheap, right?
Yeah.
And
So-
that's why your body responded the way it did.
Well, that's
you've
important
never-
for us to know because, you know, you look at the incident and people with stigma of addiction have all these things to say about drug addicts. But at the end of the day, the sickness that you were under, like, and we don't even have to call it addiction. Meredith said it perfect. Sin is a sickness.
Yeah.
And the word is the chemotherapy.
Yep.
But when you're dead in sin, bro, you do what sin tells you to do,
That's right.
period.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's this level of understanding. I think the Christian who says that I'm founded on the blood and righteousness of Jesus should look at people and not say, I would never do that. I think I look at people sometimes and say, I'm thank God that it wasn't me because it could have been.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And I think your story is one of those of, I just need to get well.
Yeah.
Because I don't think a lot of people understand when you get addicted to opiates, there is a withdrawal
Oh,
that
yeah.
the addict is going to get well.
Yeah.
They're not going and saying, hey, I'm going to burn my family down. I'm going to ruin my job. It's just this idea of this is what I do. This is my medicine per se.
Yeah.
And this is what makes me comfortable in my own skin. And I can't function until.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But then you get a hold of some what you thought was heroin and it was fentanyl.
Yeah.
So what happened?
So driving down the road, I mean, I overdosed and totaled my truck with my son in the back, and you know, could have killed us. And you know, I know that it was, you know, God protecting us.
Shaken but not taken.
Yeah, I think I hit a culvert. I mean, I don't remember anything until waking up after they Narcaned me about 3 times.
Is a culvert what you hit?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
So he
Another
gets
similar story.
55. So he gets a fight with his wife, been eating Ambien, smoking meth, hits a culvert going 55 miles an hour.
Yeah,
And then you take off, overdose, hit a culvert.
yeah.
Do you remember?
I don't remember driving for like 6 or 7 miles. I just remember waking up after they Narcaned me, and like it was like a dream or something. I mean, you know, get arrested, go to jail, sit in jail for about 3 weeks. And of course, I'm in jail. Like, you know, it's, you know, this is rock bottom. You know, you know, don't even know what to say about it. I can just remember sitting in jail. I'm like, I need help. You know, I knew I needed help before, but, you know, when you're working, you're like, I can't get help because, you know, I got to have the income to pay the mortgage. And,
Yep.
but I think God just, you know, he knew, like, he just had this plan for a long time because, like, my wife's, you know, travel nursing, you know, being able to cover the bills. And it just happened at, you know, time where I was able to come to the Bridge Center. And I didn't, you know, he made it easy in that aspect that we didn't have to worry about our finances because my wife, who thank God for her, was able to take care of those things. And thank God for her too, because, you know, that's just a whole nother testimony in itself that we're still together.
Yeah, we're getting that on. We're getting that on here one day.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
this is the. Let's just be honest. Based on the perspective or perception that you have spent your whole life trying to show others that you are, now it's been exposed. You're sitting in jail, and it's just like, man, this is one of the worst emotional days of my life.
oh yeah.
But think about it from this point, right here today, looking back on that. It was the first days of the rest of your life.
yeah.
Yep.
So we thank God for that,
Oh,
right?
absolutely,
Because,
every day.
man, if that don't happen,
Yep.
you're still
Yeah.
drinking and using.
Yeah, if that doesn't happen, I'm still, living in, misery every day and medicating myself. And I thank God every day that happened, and
So how'd you hear about the bridge? So you're in jail. I got a story to tell about this, but I want to know,
Yeah.
how did you hear about the bridge?
so of course, I'm looking for a place to go. So my dad reaches out. Of course, we get up with Meredith, and Meredith talks to Alan Cothran, and then that's how we found out about the Bridge Center.
Yeah.
So,
Do you remember calling?
oh yeah,
But you didn't call me first. You know who did?
my dad, I'm sure. Yep.
And can I tell you something about Mr. Knox? It's amazing how we talk about your journey of changing, but from the day I talked to him until now, what addiction has afforded him a new pair of glasses is beyond my imagination. Because when he called us, this wasn't, there was no reality in his life of the mess his son was in.
Yeah.
He didn't want to, I don't know if he didn't, like he was in denial or if he just didn't understand the significance of addiction. But do you remember the conversation that we had with him?
I do remember some of it, and I don't want to, speak out of turn, but I remember we were at Fuji in Anderson eating hibachi that day, and you were like, "Bro, I need you to go outside and take this call. A student named Michael is in jail in North Carolina, and just go hear him out, see if you think he'd be a good fit for us." And I remember when I got off the phone with Mike, I literally walked back in and I said, "B, I feel like he's almost in the same situation I was in. And if he's willing to come and do what I was willing to do, his life will be different." I do remember that. And here we are. How long has it been now, Mike?
14 months.
14 months later.
Well, the first time we talked to you, we was at that little Soulflower event at Anderson University. That's when I first talked to him.
When I talked to him the first time, he was in jail, calling from jail to do his over the phone interview. Yeah.
Hey, was the phone?
Yeah, it was.
fun.
It was.
in jail.
Hey, but
Yeah.
I do remember the desperation, and most guys say all the right things.
That's right.
But there was an urgency in his voice
There was.
of, I don't ever want to go back,
Yep.
But I think there was just this way of, some people, it's like, how do I save face through this?
Mm-hmm. That's the deal, man.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, man.
Yeah.
Like, I've got everything that anybody probably could want. And my life's in shambles, but I also want to find a way to save face through this humiliating situation.
Yeah.
And you know what, man? There is a lot of freedom in knowing that there is no face to save when things hit the fan, because this is the greatest need that any human being has, and that's to be rescued by Jesus.
Yeah.
And we don't have to be humiliated in how he does it. Most of the time we're humiliated because we never would have listened to him 18 million times before.
Yep.
And a lot of times
Right.
this humiliation comes from the fact that, okay, you think you're getting away from me?
Yeah.
By rejecting this, rejecting that, I'll show you, buddy. And, God allows these things, and, man, those things bring a desperation in us nothing else has.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so it's been cool watching, because it ain't just been you. It's been your wife, your kids, your sister, your dad, your mom. The whole family has just grown tremendously through this process of you getting well.
Yeah.
And, this is the aspect that I have been excited to hear of how your story has really changed your sister, your family, their perspective of addiction, and, people that are suffering with addiction and their need for treatment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people, like this, we wouldn't disagree with this statement, bro, you need Jesus. Nobody disagrees with that. But I found that sometimes that looks different than the way it looked in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I went to church, got saved at an altar. Man, that's so cool. But how about Michael got saved in a rehab center that he had to travel several hundred miles away
Yep.
from his home and leave his family and kids for 4 months?
Yep.
They're both the same
Yep.
authentic
Yep.
healing. Jesus just had a path for Michael that sometimes looks different with others, but he is the common denominator.
That's right.
Yeah.
The foundation.
Yep.
So can we talk a little bit about how when you left home, came here, And then your perspective of just the journey, if there was any skepticism, or was it just like, man, this is it, you know, like he's changing, you know, because some family look at him, like I'm sure the wife's point of view is a little different than maybe the sisters, where the sister's like, go, bro, go. And then the wife's just on eggshells because is this really going to be the time?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, I'll be honest. So obviously, I didn't live close for a lot of it.
Yeah.
But also, just because you're not close doesn't mean you don't carry it.
Yeah.
Because when stuff would happen, or, you know, I was the call for my parents. And I can't tell you how many times, like, we're on the phone and we're praying, and I'm just, I don't know what to do. You know, I'm like, there were multiple times where I was like, God, do I need to move home? Like, to just help? Would proximity, I don't know what my presence would do. But I'm telling you, I won't say I didn't doubt, because I for sure did. I remember, well, let me say this. I was in Australia when Michael got in the wreck. I was there for my best friend's wedding. And I remember I was walking out, because each time something would happen, you're like, maybe this is rock bottom. Maybe this is rock bottom. Because desperation has a driving power.
Yeah.
And Michael's final desperation drove him here, drove him to Jesus. But desperation's rising in us, and it drove me to, I didn't know where else to go. So I'm just going to go to the feet of Jesus again and again and again. Even when I'm mad. Even when I'm like, I'm not praying about this again.
Yeah.
I'm sick and tired of praying for this. It's like the daily cry of my heart. Do it or leave me alone.
Yeah.
Like, is my prayer. Like, so I was in Australia, and you get the call you never want to get. And I'm like in a public park. And I call Mom, and she's like, we're on the way to the emergency room. We don't know what happened, but Michael and Finley were in a wreck. And I just hit my knees in the middle of this public park. I'm praying out loud in tongues. All the Australians are like, you're all right? Like, I don't care. I'm like, not my freaking brother, not my freaking nephew. Like, over my dead body, you know? And I guess tongues is all I got. So I'm just letting it rip. And I'm like, do you want me to come home? And obviously we found out they were fine miraculously. And I just got to say, hit 3 times with Narcan. If you don't think there's not a, like, spiritual tie there to 3, Jesus rose on 3, Michael's raised up on 3, his body's raised because his spirit's about to be raised. And I remember, like, Dad's like, no, like, there's nothing you can do if you come home. But every day he's calling me, because Michael's obviously, you're detoxing in prison. So one minute Michael's calling all lovey, come get me. And maybe the next call's not as lovey, come get me out of jail.
Yeah.
And so Dad's like, I haven't told you this. Dad's like, I'm going to bail him out. I said, don't you dare. I love you. Don't you dare bail him out. This is the desperation he needs. And Jesus is going to meet him there. I was praying Acts. Like, there is too many times where you met people miraculously in prison. God, meet him miraculously in prison. There's a song for people still, I know, like, praying over your loved ones who have addiction is exhausting. And it is discouraging. But for anybody listening, I just want to encourage you, like, to not give up praying. There is power in your prayer. You've been praying for your brother, your son, your nephew for 20 years. The first time I can remember praying for Michael, I was 5 years old. And I was 35 when this happened. And I remember there's this song called I Speak Jesus by Charity Gale. Yeah, everybody should listen to it. And it became like, I'm driving the streets of Australia just blaring it on the other side of the road, on the other side of the car. There was one day where I'm singing it and I almost threw up because I was singing it so loud. Because it says, it speaks Jesus over addiction. It speaks Jesus over depression. And I'm driving down the road and I'm like, I speak Jesus. Like, I'm singing it so hard. But listen, revival prayer is not pretty prayer.
Yeah.
It is almost throwing up, desperate prayer.
Yeah.
It's a cry.
And when I called Alan and we found out there was a place open here, I had like hope spring up that I was like, yeah, get him in my hood.
Yeah.
Yes.
Get him.
Yeah.
Bring him
Get 'em,
down to the 8-6 fold.
I knew these two guys were going to say stuff the way you need. Like, people who love, it's harder to talk directly to the people that you love.
your family.
Yes.
There's a lot of truth in that statement.
And I knew like he needed some men around him that were gonna like love him differently. And I know Alan Cawthorn, you know,
Real deal.
he's the real
He's the real deal.
deal, and he's gonna tell us straight.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was even like, it was the week before you called me and told me you were getting baptized, that I was hopeful, but I was, you know, you wrestle with the, we'll see.
Yeah.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. At church, they were like, write down a prayer request and bring it to the front. And God was like, put Michael's name down. I'm like, I've put Michael's name down on every card that's ever existed of every prayer. And I'm not even playing. I like walked up and like tossed it. I was like, you can have it.
3-pointer.
Yeah. And it was like that week that Michael called, or I came and visited, one or the other. And you're like, here's what happened. Here's how God even revealed himself in jail. And I was like, we prayed for that week, you know? And I'm getting baptized. And I was like, I'm thankful for every card, every moment of almost throwing up, every like, because I just knew. Like,
It made sense at that moment.
Yes.
Like, and if I have to go back through that again for this to
Yeah.
happen, I'll do it.
Do it again.
because also like just like God, your story is never just about you.
Ever.
So like, of course God brought me here because I thought I'm gifted to play softball and God's brought me here to play softball. It's like, okay, cool. Any female playing sport, I love you. It'll probably be over after college. It's probably as far as you're going to go.
Right.
But really like use that gift to bring me here, to reveal what my actual calling and gifting was, to then create a space where I like had these relationships and that then my brother could come. And now they live here.
But don't
that's
you
good.
think
Now we're
that's
neighbors.
provision?
Yeah.
Don't you
Yeah.
think God already had all this in mind when he
100%.
started
Yeah.
Yeah.
creating relationships that would eventually hold him until he could get to that place himself? Like, I think that's God's provision for our life. Like,
Yeah.
that's his sovereignty. Like, he's that good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool to think that. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
That's
Christmas Day, we're at each other. Like I'm at their house and I'm like, look at us. We're all happy.
And Anderson.
In Anderson. Who wouldn't want to live in Anderson?
Yeah.
so. We got to baptize him. What can
Yeah.
you talk about that? Was that a pretty cool experience for you to be
Oh,
able
yeah,
to
it's
help
still-
baptize your brother?
It was the background on my phone for like a year. I wasn't expecting that. Like I just
Not at
was
all.
there and you were like,
Hey,
come up. Michael's that okay? And I don't know if he thought it was okay or not, but
Oh yeah.
and it is like one of the greatest honors of my life. Like y'all probably didn't have to fill up the tub. I could have filled it with my tears of just,
but I love that God loves the family.
yeah.
Like, I think that God really loves the fact that you love him like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I think that, you know, Michael, but like to have a sister that loves you like that, because now my sister's, well, like she loves me like that, dude. And like, as much as God puts me in positions to be able to serve, like there's nothing like your baby sister calling and saying, I'm proud of you, or asking questions about the Bible. Like, dude, I think God really cares about those relationships. And so like, that is so good to see not only your life change, but these relationships being reconciled.
Yeah.
I mean,
You
I always
know?
thought he was the coolest.
Yeah, she's wrote me several like little letters or cards and told me that she's always looked up to me, and I mean that means a lot. I mean, I think she even wrote me while I was here and said that. So, you know, because I look up to her as well. You know, what she's done in life, and just how you know, people look to her for counsel, and so it just really it meant a lot and still means a lot to this day that she's always been there for me, and that she has looked up to me even during those times when nobody probably should have been looking up to me.
Yeah. Well, Michael, I could say this, dude, that no matter what your past says, no matter what the people who could never get past what your past says, you've become a leader back in your home.
Mm-hmm.
And because of your courage and your vulnerability and coming here, doing what it takes, I watched your youngest son or your middle boy come up crying, wanting to know more about this life,
He's
to
the
be
best.
baptized.
Yeah.
Seeing your oldest boy be like, look, dude, like everything the enemy stole from you, like God is restoring back to you through his grace. And like, I need you to know in this season, like you are leading well.
Yeah.
And like, I know these first seasons are tough because you're still trying to figure it out. But I'm telling you, man, like, God is with you. He's for you. And, dude, you are killing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you really are killing it. And you couldn't have no better children. I got a chance
really
to
are
go
the
and pick
best.
them up. And, like, they're probably the sweetest. I might be a little biased because I love your family. But I'm telling you.
No, they really are.
They're the
They
sweetest,
are.
soft-spoken kids you'll ever meet. But to know that at that age, they got to see a real life miracle.
Yeah.
Because don't take it for granted, because here's the truth. We had, and I'll say this, I think it's fitting. We had a young lady that her husband came through the facility, and he graduated, and it wasn't 4 months after that we did his funeral. And she comes in periodically, and she buys merchandise to help support. But she came in yesterday with her little girl, and the little girl looked up, and her daddy is on the wall.
Yeah.
And just tears flooded down her eyes, because of the misfortune that addiction took him out. But like at the end of the day, bro, like God has spared you in such a way to lead that it's such a beautiful thing because it's a gift from God, and to be able to lead, man, dude, the things you've always wanted to do, like you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's not from, I don't think it's from this place of, outwardly I'm doing something while inwardly it don't match.
Yeah.
Like I think it is finally from the inside out.
Yeah. For sure.
And that's the deal, man.
Yeah.
That you did some hard things while you were here. Like, dude, we could have all day about this story because you didn't just get here. Like you're not just sitting here because time. You're sitting here because you did the hard work with the time. And so I just, man, I'm so proud of you and so awesome to see your family, reconcile, which isn't always the case.
Yeah.
Like I can't promise somebody under the sound of my
Right.
voice if you get sober that this story is going to be your story.
Yeah.
But I can promise you that God will be a friend that sticks closer than a
Yes.
brother. He'll be near to the brokenhearted. He'll be a
Yes.
present help in the time of trouble. Like this is Michael's story. This is God's glory. But, God always has a better outcome than we ever could imagine, And I think the treasure that Michael found was that he met Jesus.
Yes.
And if none of this other stuff we're talking about as a byproduct would have happened, I still believe Michael would be sitting here.
Yeah. Sober.
Sober.
Yeah.
With hope for whatever God had in store for him.
Yeah.
I really do.
So, can I ask her a question real quick?
Yeah.
So, when I was thinking about our conversation last night, what it would be today, I really wanted to ask you. The question first was in my mind. What was your perspective of a drug addict then, as opposed to now? Right. That was how I wanted to ask you. But as we're sitting here talking, I think the question more is, how did your perspective of Jesus and what he could do? How did that change through what he's done in your own family?
Yeah. That's what I was even thinking about while you were talking, Bradley, of like, when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are in front of Nebuchadnezzar and he's like, bow before this idol. And they're like, nah. He's like, okay, well, you're going to get burned. And they're like, well, God's able to save us, but even if he doesn't, we're not going to bow.
Yeah.
And that became a lot of my prayer with Jesus was like, I know you are able. I know you are able. I even believe you want to. But even if you don't, I'm not going to give up hope. And I wouldn't trade what I got with Jesus, even in like what the the way the addiction, or praying for Lizzie and praying for my nephews, like what that got me with God for anything. And there's like, because I don't think, well, at least for me, I never doubted that God could. I did doubt that he would. And
But is the presence of doubt really mean the absence of faith?
no, so there's like, I heard somebody recently describe, again, in Luke 1, you see Zachariah and Mary, right? The angel comes and gives them very similar news. An impossible pregnancy is going to happen. They both ask pretty much the same question. How? Zachariah's like, I'm old. Mary's like, I'm a virgin. Very like, but I've heard somebody describe the difference between them was Mary had faithful doubt.
See, that's it.
Yes. And where Zachariah questioned and like accusation, more like mocking, like, okay.
Yeah.
Mary was just like, okay, very practically. There's things you have to do in order to make a kid.
Yes.
Never done that. But it was this faithful doubt that I think even with Lily, what I learned, and then even like in the years of praying for Michael, is God, your doubt also will drive you somewhere. And doubt drove me to ask God more questions, not because I was like accusing him, because I was just like, I want to help me, even if I can't understand, give me more of you, where sometimes doubt will drive people away. I was like, I'm going to hopefully, not perfectly by any means, but faithfully bring doubt to God, believing that one day, never knew it would be like over a podcast, but I'll be sitting with my brother. Like I just always knew one day we're going to be like really good friends because we're both pretty funny. We're both pretty fun. And it was the only thing in the way really felt like it was the addiction.
Yeah.
And now it's out the way and now they live here. And so
that's the cool thing, bro.
Yeah.
Like when you let Jesus in your boat, like you really never know what's about to happen. If you, before all this happened, if you would have imagined or wrote down what you thought God would do, would you have sold this story short?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, would you ever have believed I'm going to go to rehab, I'm going to get saved, I'm going to get baptized, my kid's going to get baptized, then you know what, I'm going to go home for a year, I'm going to go through a long, strenuous character building, and then I'm going to move back to Anderson.
No,
I mean, would you have ever thought that?
No.
So it's amazing, man, that when you follow Jesus, dude, like he often does things we would have never done, which is a hell of a ride, if I could say.
You can say.
Yeah, because I mean,
You
it's
looked at
almost,
me.
It's like being. Well, I mean, never mind. But like you're in a river. That's what the life is like. Being led by the Holy Spirit. It's like I'm in a river. There's rapids, and like I'm going with it.
Let's go. Yep.
And you've done that, and who
I can
knows
say
what's
that
ahead.
if what he's done so far, I mean, I want to be on that river the rest of my life. I may not know where it takes me or my family, but I know if I'm, in the boat with Jesus, that I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah. Man, you almost don't want this
Powerful.
to stop, do you? It's like,
And then I remember. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, for sure. So, Mike, in conclusion, man, if there's somebody that is where you were, 16 months ago? Right now listening to this, what would be your encouragement? What would be your hope to them? What would you say to them?
Put me on the spot here. I would say that, just don't give up. For all those years that, I battled with alcoholism and drug addiction and all the other issues I had going on, that, I still knew that Jesus could save me. And it took him coming to me on a fateful night that could have took my life for him to show me that I can rescue you.
Yeah.
I could rescue your family.
Yeah.
I could turn it all around.
Yeah.
So just don't give up. And I know there's some out there that, they may not even believe in Jesus. And I hope they hear this story and know that he's alive and that he loves you more than anything.
Yeah. Wow. It's been a great morning. Tears. CJ over here crying like a baby. Next time
I'm not crying, you're crying.
Well, I could say that CJ and I have been honored to, be on a front row seat to this redemptive story and what God is doing in y'all's life. And we're just excited to see what's to come because we know it's probably greater than it is now.
Yeah.
And shout out to your job. Keep making that dough, that bread.
Yeah.
Keeping these Ingles filled up with that loaf of bread.
Yeah. I think that's part of the story too is, my granddaddy's, I don't know what, he's 91 now?
91,
91 years old. Before I came here, I got a job as, I was working in the seafood industry and
cleaning
just
crabs.
labor, just crabs, throwing 50-pound boxes of crabs. And I was telling my granddad about it, and he made the reference about, being fishers of men. And then I come here and I get a job at a bakery, and many references in the Bible about
leaven,
leavened bread, and Jesus being the bread of life. And I don't think those are coincidences. I think that
he's a prophet now.
I think that I'm exactly where God wanted me to be, and knowing that I'm in His plan and I'm doing His will in my life, and then that I'm seeking counsel for those decisions and what I do, and I think it's a part of the story as well. So.
Would you say that's been a vital asset to your journey is to keep counsel in your life?
I think that's one of the key priorities of it, is to keep counsel. I don't, want to make decisions, big decisions, maybe sometimes even smaller decisions without seeking counsel in my life, because I never did that before. I just did what I wanted to do. But now it's about prayer, seeking the answers from God. And then also, seeking the answers from God is going to that counsel and going to people that, for me, Bradley and CJ, I speak to Alan. Shout out to Alan, by the way. Alan Cothran, love you, man.
Ooh,
Still can't beat me in golf.
Me neither.
Alan. That's a shot, son.
Does Alan golf?
Bro.
I'm sorry.
This dude
No,
don't golf for 10 years and comes out and beats us both.
Bless our head.
Like, he's that guy.
Yeah.
Like, he's a real
problem.
humble, but he's not played in 3 years. He knows he's shooting an 80.
Yeah.
He looks
Oh,
like
and
he
Dan
can play
Leanne.
golf.
I remember you. Wow, I can't bring him in this. But
Yeah,
you next.
Leave Dan out of
You
it.
next, Dan. Well, wow. So, thank you guys.
Yeah,
for
thank
thank
taking
you.
your Friday morning to cut it up with us
Yeah.
and share what the Lord is doing in your life. And you guys are out for a treat. You got to wait for a while to get it. But until next time, cheers.
Saxon gets a rebound, passes it to Knox. She sets up, she shoots, she scores!